Hey YouTube, Twig here, bringing you all an update to my Ursarctic Yugioh deck profile for September 2024. This is a very interesting deck that kind of takes a concept of the Dark Synchro Summon to a different height with the Ursarctic monsters, being able to summon out our level 1 Synchro monsters, including our Ursarctic Polar Star and our Ursarctic Polari, to be able to then use those monsters for the added difference in Synchro summoning out our bigger Synchro monsters as well. It's a very big investment deck for the Synchro summon, but then you have that setup to rely on as well for the summons of your bigger Ursarctic monsters. So let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So we'll go ahead and we will start off with the main deck monsters. For the Ursarctic monsters, we are running 3 copies of Ultimate Bright Knight Ursartron Alpha with this card. It's also treated as an Ursarctic and Drytron card. It cannot be normal summoned or set. It must be special summoned by a card effect. If you control an Ursarctic or Drytron monster, except Ultimate Bright Knight Ursartron Alpha, you can special summon this card from your hand. Then you can add 1 Ursarctic or Drytron spell or trap from your deck to your hand. You go and use this effect of Ultimate Bright Knight once per turn, but just having that monster as a resource, then being able to summon out this level 7 monster is a big part of the setup needed for the Ursarctic monsters. So 3 copies of this is definitely needed just for its ease and search power that it can provide. We're also running 3 copies of Ursarctic McBillis. During the main phase quick effect, you contribute 1 other level 7 or higher monster from your hand to special summon this card from your hand. Also, you cannot special summon for the rest of this turn, except for monsters with a level. If this card is special summon, you can special summon 1 Ursarctic monster from your hand, except for Ursarctic McBillis. You can only use this effect of McBillis once per turn. So the big restriction with this deck is for the majority of the time, you're just going to be going into your Ursarctic monsters. You're restricted from easily being able to go into cards like Link monsters and all of those other plays. So synchros will be the majority of what you'll do with this deck, but it's another one of your non-tuners for the level 7 monsters. Same with Ursarctic Mectonus, which we also run 3 copies of, being able to tribute 1 other level 7 or higher monster from your hand to special summon this card, and then being locked into levels as well. If it's special summon, you can target an Ursarctic monster in your graveyard, except for Mectonus, add it to your hand. So add back power on top of that, and then being able to use the option of McBillis for a special summon. It just gives you those resources on the field for you to be able to use. And then for the other level 7s, 2 copies of Ursarctic McPolar, having the tribute of a level 7 or higher monster once again to special summon this card, being restricted into levels, and then being able to add an Ursarctic monster from your deck to your hand except McPolar. If you want to run a 3rd copy of this card, you can knock down maybe 1 of the generics that I'm running for the hand trap lineup to add a 3rd copy of this card. But for the level 8 monsters, we run a lower number for those monsters to begin with. 2 copies of Ursarctic Megapolar. During the main phase quick effect, you contribute 1 other level 7 or higher monster from your hand, special summon this card from your hand. Also, you cannot special summon for monsters except for ones with a level. If it's special summon while you control another Ursarctic monster, you can target a spell or trap your opponent controls and destroy it. So you have destruction power, but the level 8 monsters are also needed to kind of perform that dark synchro summon, since this is a level 8 tuner monster. So along with that, we also have the 2 copies of Ursarctic Megatonus, having the special summon option, restricting for the levels once again. And if it's special summon while you control another Ursarctic, you can target a face-up monster your opponent controls and change it to face-down defense. So you have spell and trap destruction, flipping down a monster, and then the last one being our Mega Billis with this card, being able to target a card in your opponent's graveyard and banish it. So all of the bigger level 8 tuner monsters have disruption plays on top of their own special summon options onto the field. And then for the hand trap lineup, 1 copy of Nibiru, 2 copies of Moonlit Chill, and 3 copies of Ash Blossom, just because we are running the Crossout Designator lineup. So we have plenty of targets to hit for our opponent's cards whenever they would reveal one of these cards playing against them. And I would say Nibiru is definitely a big one for the deck, just with how many summonings you'll do in 1 turn to, perform your final summon of the game. For the spells, run 1 copy of Ursarctic Big Dipper once per turn. If you're a Ursarctic monster, tribute a monster to activate its effect. You can banish a level 7 or higher Ursarctic monster in your graveyard instead. Each time a monster is special summoned, place 1 counter on this card. Once per turn, if a monster is special summoned and an Ursarctic synchro monster is on the field, except during the damage step, you can remove all counters from this card, minimum 7. Target 1 monster your opponent controls and take control of it. So just another resource grab to use for your opponent's cards. We may be restricted with some of our summons in this deck, depending on the monsters we have, but depending on also what we take from our opponent, we can potentially go into some of the other other extra deck monsters we're also running in the deck. Also 3 copies of Ursarctic Radiation. Activate this card by placing 7 counters on it. Each time an Ursarctic monster is special summon from the hand or extra deck, remove 1 counter. And also draw 1 card. And once per turn during the end phase, you can target 1 Ursarctic card in your graveyard except for Radiation, shuffle into the deck. You can only control 1 Radiation, but this is just being the option in the deck most suitable for you to not lose resources for your Ursarctic cards, placing the 7 counters on it, and every time you summon a monster for that investment, being able to remove a counter and draw a card for it also. We're also running the 3 copies of Ursarctic Departure. You discard 1 card, add 2 Ursarctic monsters from your deck to your hand. If you attribute a monster to activate an Ursarctic monster effect, except for the turn was sent to the graveyard, you can banish this card from your graveyard instead. So set up for 2 more monsters, setting up another potential one in your graveyard for you to use as well, but just the addition of 2 more monsters you may particularly need for a play on the field. And also the 2 copies of Ursarctic Slider. Target 1 of your Ursarctic monsters that is banished during your graveyard. Special summon it, but it cannot attack. Also destroy during the end phase for the rest of this turn. You cannot special summon except for monsters with a level. It's just another resource grab from the graveyard. If you need a specific level 8 tuner or a level 7 non-tuner, this card can grab it for that play. It doesn't negate its effects. It just, restricts the fact that it cannot attack. And then for the staples in the deck, 3 copies of Crossout Designator and the 1 copy of Pot of Prosperity. More search power, and I would say this is what we use for the most of our other non-Ursarctic resources in the extract, just for us to banish to get the proper card we need for a play. And as I mentioned before, the other hand traps, that's what the Crossout Designator is for. And for the traps, 1 copy of Ursarctic Quint Charge. Once per turn, you can pay 700 life points to activate one of the following effects. Add an Ursarctic monster from your graveyard to your hand. So recycle power, being a trap, you can also use it on your opponent's turn. Or you can tribute 2 Ursarctic monsters, even face down, to special summon 1 from your extra deck with a level equal to the difference in levels of those monsters. So a way to summon out your Ursarctic Synchro monsters on your opponent's turn, also using this card. With the last of our traps being 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence, just another hand trap disruption for our opponent, but another Crossout Designator target also. And then for the extra deck, we run 2 copies of Ursarctic Polari. With this card, it cannot be synchro summoned, must be special summoned from your extra deck by sending 2 monsters you control with level difference of 1 to the graveyard, 1 tuner, 1 non-tuner. If it's special summon, you can activate 1 Ursarctic Big Dipper directly from your deck, and you can tribute 1 level 7 or higher monster to add to your hand or special summon 1 Ursarctic monster from your graveyard. This will give you the resource for your add or special summon of the other additional Ursarctic monster you'll need to go into your bigger synchro play. With the other setup we have being our Ursarctic Polar Star, having the same restriction for summoning out our differences in tuners to summon this card out as well. You contribute a level 8 Ursarctic from your hand or field. This card gains the special summon 1 level 7 synchro from your extra deck, ignoring its summoning conditions. If you do, it gains this effect. Your opponent cannot activate the effects of monsters with a level that were special summoned from the extra deck, but still giving you those added resources in the form of our Ursarctic monsters, which we are also running 2 copies of Septentrion. With this card, by sending 2 monsters you control with a level difference of 7 to the graveyard, 1 level 8 or higher, and 1 non-tuner. So then with this card having, once again, those level restrictions for your tuner, and then your non-tuner being the Polari on the field, sending those to be able to summon out our bigger synchros again. It's, once again, the dark synchro aspect for our extract. The same with our Grand Chariot, with the same play as well for those resources on the field. And then, as I said, the rest of the deck are just generic water monsters that you really won't go into too often, but I just have them here as 1 for prosperity, banish targets, as well as the off chance, depending on the tuners you set up, including our Moonlit Chill that we're running for you to be able to use also. And then lastly, just 2 link monsters. Once again, you're restricted to summoning cards with a level for a majority of cards, so these could potentially also be other cards for the banish for prosperity, but there are some scenarios where you need the Big Dipper recycled, and that's where this comes in handy also. And then as for some of the go-to plays in the deck, the setup for your 2 monsters is what I would say is the most important. So having the tribute option for your cards on the field, where radiation can give you draw power as well, but having the tribute for your Ursarctic monsters, I would say, is also a big part of it. Having that special summon, and when you get your setup for your tuner and your level 7 monster, so you have your level 8 tuner, your level 7 monster, then you use those 2 cards for the difference in level to then summon out your go-to Polari on the field, and then you need that additional tuner monster to be summoned out to the field, which once again, that's why radiation is so important. It can help with the draw power, giving you that additional tribute needed for the tuner that you'll summon back into the field, having the difference in the 2 monsters again for you to then be able to summon out your Ursarctic level 7 monster of choice. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed. Like I said, just want to update this very unique and interesting, fun deck for you all. And as always, until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. And Kira Twig out.